So this is pretty simple, but we have some additional things to consider before we decide on a long-term strategy with icon fonts. If you just stick with this approach, you'll still be able to get a lot done, but eventually you'll probably standardize on a different approach, and I'll explain why in a minute. Now, before we get into those other approaches, let's look at a specific styling of an icon that we use in our design. So I'm going to jump back over to Photoshop. And if we look in the quality section here, we have these icons with circles around them. Now, sometimes you'll find icons that are designed specifically this way. In Font Awesome, we're not going to have a lot of circular icons though. We'll have a heart and we'll have a lightning bolt, but we won't have ones that exist inside of a circle. So we'll need to add that circle ourselves. So let's see how we can do that. So let's create a placeholder for this. I'm going to do this above our button. So what I think we're going to want with this is that sometimes we'll want to display this circle icon in line with things. Like if we scroll down here to the footer here with the Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn icons. And sometimes we'll want it to kind of stand on its own. But it doesn't look like we're going to want it to stretch across the entire page or across an entire element. So in considering what display type this element is, it's not going to be a block, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be inline exactly. Instead, it seems like it's more likely an inline block. So we'll begin with a generic container. We can figure out later if there's something better to call this. And let's give it a class. And let's treat this as if it were going to be a component, since it's definitely something that's reused throughout the site, even though it's different in its different implementations. So I think I would call this an icon, but I think that the circle version is a variation. So let's add a subcomponent name of icon circle. And just for an example, let's use this heart icon. So I'm going to go over to the cheat sheet. I'm going to do a browser search for heart. And here's the one that we want, I think. So I'll copy the code and I'll paste it inside of our div here, and I'll save this. Now, even though I'm pretty sure that this is the structure that we'll want to use for our HTML, I'm still not 100% sure how we're going to structure our CSS. So I'm going to continue to work in the play partial here. So we're going to start with the icon component, and we're going to use this font family, Font Awesome. So let's copy this. And then we're going to create a variation on this, a subcomponent called .icon -- circle. So I'm going to use the ampersand to pull in this selector here. We'll do -- circle, and we'll create our brackets. And so we've determined that this is going to have a display of inline block like we've used before. If we go back to our design and we zoom in, we'll see that maybe it has a padding of about 30 pixels around it. So let's give it padding 30 pixels. Now we would fix this eventually to be a relative number. And the way that we're going to get this circle here is by using rounded corners, or the border radius property. Remember how we can make it rather large in order to make each corner a quarter circle. So let's do border radius, and we'll say 4em. Let's change the font color to white, and even though we'll probably move this because there's variation in the background colors, let's set the background color to purple to give it some contrast with the font color. And then one more thing we need to tackle is the font size. So let's do a quick measurement here. Looks like the font size is probably about 40 pixels here. Now I know that this circle font is going to be different than the ones that we're using in the lower right hand corner. And the padding and the font size seem like they have more to do with this particular version of it. So we'll probably be moving our CSS around. But for now, we're just going to try to get this one right and go from there. So we'll do font size 40 pixels. And let's save this and go back to the browser and see what we have. Go to the example page and refresh. And wow, check it out. We have our circle icon.